Good morning and welcome to day 2 of the Canadian Hydrogen Convention. I'm Chris McLeod with Edmonton Global, and we're joining you from the Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub exhibit here at Canada's largest, actually North America's largest hydrogen conference. And I'm actually literally joining you from inside the exhibit. This is part of the exhibit that we've built here for the whole region. And as you can see, we've got partners here. The Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub is a real mix of all levels of government, from the federal government to the province, to many municipalities, First Nations, groups like Alberta's Industrial Heartland and Edmonton Global, Emissions Reduction Alberta, and a whole bunch of people that have come together, including industry, to really build something special here. When you come down and visit us, you'll also see this pretty cool video that we built with a local company, Run With It Synthetics. We'll be speaking to Myrna Bittner and her team a little later in the day, but this is a synthetic model of what we think the build-out of Edmonton's hydrogen future could be from today until about 2050, as we really meet the world's climate objectives. Now, our very first session for the day is with Chris Nash and AMTA. They've got a really excitement announcement to get us started. And Chris, over to you.
Excellent, thanks Chris. Good morning everyone. On behalf of the Alberta Motor Transport Association's Board of Directors and staff, we thank Edmonton Global and DMG Events for planning and hosting the 2022 Canadian Hydrogen Convention. I'm grateful to attend this conference and thankful for this opportunity to share an exciting announcement as well as some thoughts on behalf of the association. As well, I'd like to introduce our folks that we have on our panel here we're going to speak to later. We have Dr. David Van Dem Essem. He's the Senior Manager, Clean Technology of Alberta Innovates. And Grace Meikle, Senior Business Manager at Emissions Reductions Alberta. Welcome, thank you. And we definitely look forward to hearing your thoughts when we talk later. So before I continue, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on traditional Treaty 6 territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Dakota Sioux. This is the home of the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta, Regions 2, 3, and 4 within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. Since 1938, the AMTA has been the voice of the commercial transportation industry in Alberta, advancing its members and interests through safety programs, progressive policy, and strategic partnerships. The AMTA works closely with governments, industry, and other stakeholders to identify and research opportunities and to propose and implement data-driven solutions that help reduce greenhouse gas emissions as we work together to achieve Canada's goal of reaching net zero by 2050. It's these strategic partnerships and our collaboration with stakeholders that drives what we do and is the foundation of much of our success. This morning, I'm thrilled to announce another invaluable partnership that will introduce our industry to new technology that will enhance efficiency and innovation within our industry and help Canada reach net zero goals. So it's my pleasure to announce that Suncor Energy has joined as one of the AMTA's many partners on several key hydrogen initiatives. Suncor will provide hydrogen fueling stations and site construction services in support of the Alberta Zero Emission Truck Electrification, also known as AZTEC. Suncor will provide the fueling stations in locations both in Calgary and in Edmonton. The first fueling station, which will be located at the Suncor refinery in Edmonton, will be used for the AZTEC and fueling transit vehicles for the City of Edmonton and Strathcona County through the Alberta Zero Emissions Hydrogen Transit, also known as AZET project. The second fueling station will be located at a to-be-determined location in Calgary, and it'll be used for the AZTEC and as well for the AZET project. Suncor will also provide financial contributions, in-kind salaries for engineering staff, project materials, hydrogen molecules for the entire project, and more. For these pilot projects, Suncor's hydrogen molecules will be diverted from its oil refinery operations in Edmonton and will have greenhouse gas emissions that are 20 to 23% lower than diesel vehicle fuels on similar routes. Suncor will play a key role in expanding Alberta's hydrogen ecosystem through AMTA initiatives with Prairie Economic Development Canada and Zero Emission Vehicle Awareness Initiative, ZEVIA, and more. Partnerships like the ones between the AMTA and Suncor are key to establishing the building blocks necessary for the emerging hydrogen market in this province and beyond. Alberta is poised to be a leader in the hydrogen technology development and delivery, and AMTA's hydrogen initiatives will help support the province's energy transition for the transportation industry to meet the 2030 and 2050 climate targets. Having Suncor join our lineup and innovative project partners shows how hydrogen projects are of the utmost relevance today and working towards a greener future. Funding for these ventures was generously provided by Natural Resources Canada through the Electrical Vehicle Infrastructure Demonstration EVID program and the Emission Reductions Alberta through its Best Challenge program. The EVID program aims to accelerate the market entry of next-generation clean technology infrastructure by supporting the demonstration of projects in innovative electric vehicle charging and hydrogen refueling technologies in order to lead to an increased uptake of zero-emission vehicles. We thank the federal and provincial governments for their leadership and support on these projects. Suncor is one of the many companies that have partnered with the AMTA and the Alberta Zero Emission Truck Electrification Collaboration Project, as well as AZET. The AZTEC project addresses the barriers to fuel cell electric truck adoption by installing and testing a hydrogen fueling station for highway and heavy-duty commercial fleet vehicles using real-world conditions, such as capabilities in climates that range from -40 to +40, and the ability to refuel in 20 to 25 minutes. AZTEC is one of the projects selected through the Emission Reductions Alberta's Best Challenge, which awarded funding for biotechnology, electricity, and sustainable transportation initiatives. Alberta is leading the $16.5 million three-year AZTEC project, which includes financial contributions from the Natural Resources Canada and Emission Reductions Alberta. By installing and testing cutting-edge technologies to support hydrogen heavy-duty trucks and hydrogen infrastructure for the AZTEC project, and these Suncor Energy fueling stations is leading the way to decarbonizing the heavy-duty freight transportation sector. Fuel switching to hydrogen is also important for the opportunity to outline in the hydrogen strategy for Canada. Today's announcement builds on recent actions, both here in Alberta and globally, to reduce greenhouse gases and emissions in the commercial transportation sector. According to Natural Resources Canada, this country's transportation sector accounts for approximately 25% of the greenhouse gas emissions here in Canada. The increased adoption of zero-emission vehicles, including those in commercial transportation, is essential to decarbonizing the transportation sector and transitioning to a low-carbon future. AMTA is committed to helping lead Canada's commercial transportation industry towards a zero-emission future. Electric vehicles and other emission reduction strategies are essential to these efforts. The hydrogen fueling stations will support AZTEC commercial trucks in providing access to hydrogen, which diversifies energy opportunities that are critical to growing and maintaining a strong economy. Programs and projects such as this also show investors that Alberta and Canada recognize the importance of reducing industry negative impacts on the environment and our commitment to building a sustainable, efficient, resilient, and responsible supply chain. This important work can only be conducted thanks to the generous support of our government, our project partners, and the countless hardworking men and women in our industry who take pride in the safe and efficient transport of essentials for Albertans and Canadians. Once again, on behalf of AMTA's Board of Directors, staff, and we thank Suncor for joining us as one of our AZTEC project partners for working on these fueling stations. So thank you to those in this room and with me who's watching online for your time today. To learn more about the EVID, AZTEC, and AMTA's many other projects and the ongoing critical work the association does on behalf of its members, please visit amta.ca. And with that, I will turn it back over to Chris.
Thanks, Chris. And before we jump back with Chris, Grace, and David for a bit of a conversation, I wanted to give you just a bit of a sense of what's happening here at the show. So it's about 25 minutes after 10, so now the exhibit floor has been open for getting close to a half an hour, and you can really feel the energy starting to build. We're going to have 3,000 to 4,000 people on the show floor today. If you happen to be here in the Edmonton metropolitan region, you can actually still get tickets just for the exhibit. All the rest of the show, of course, has been sold out for a while. But if you want to come and join us and check out some of the great things happening, there's still time to do it. All right. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So, Chris, you just made a really exciting announcement about this project with hydrogen fueling stations. Maybe from the perspective of Alberta Innovates or Emissions Reduction Alberta, can you give us a bit of a sense of what this means?
Thanks. So I'm Dave Van Den Essen with Alberta Innovates and also working with Emissions Reduction Alberta on the AZTEC project that Chris mentioned. So this is a very exciting opportunity for the hydrogen industry in Alberta in that it's the first opportunity for the transportation sector to have access to hydrogen in the province. So we are just thrilled, and this will serve the AZTEC project and the AZ project that Grace will speak about a little bit more, as well as some of the other upcoming projects that are being put together as we speak.
Yeah, wonderful.
So I'm Grace Meikle, and I'm also working both with Alberta Innovates and Emissions Reduction Alberta on the AZ project, which is a bus hydrogen project.
Just a little closer, Grace.
And I'll just add to what David has said is that both the AZTEC and the AZ project have a number of different industry partners, and I think that's exciting in this sense that it just shows how interconnected of a hydrogen economy we're building, both for hydrogen buses and hydrogen trucks.
Wonderful. Can you speak a little bit about the types of industry partnerships that you have? Just maybe some examples. I know Suncor was mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so we have Suncor obviously providing the refueling services, AMTA, of course. Another partner I'll mention, the AZ project is led by the City of Edmonton and Strathcona County, so they're supplying the buses. So the municipalities are involved. And then we also have Transition Accelerator, which is doing a ton of very important reporting. So they're doing all the reporting and measuring, how all these buses are running. Are they behaving like normal buses, basically? Yeah. And that'll be really exciting data for us that can inform basically the fleet transition for these municipalities. So, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. You mentioned data. One of the things that our region is known for is the work in AI. The University of Alberta is the second leading center in the world for artificial intelligence research. Are you incorporating AI into some of that data, or what's actually happening with that data you're generating?
So there's part of the AZTEC project. It has a significant data collection and analysis portion. So the trucks that are going to be riding on the highway between Calgary and Edmonton are going to be completely kitted out with all kinds of analyzers, sensors, and you name it. So they'll be working with that data to try to understand how to optimize the systems, how to optimize the vehicles so that we can improve efficiency and have commercial rollout of these technologies in an efficient way.
Wow, it's fantastic. One of the things that we're really focused on within the Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub is trying to build the entire value system, or the value chain for hydrogen. We've got tons of production. That's not the challenge here. We can produce at a global scale like tomorrow. But driving that demand, as well as the innovation and the data and all the other pieces that contribute, it sounds like then this is both the demand piece as well as some of that innovation play.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And when you look at it, there's a lot of different stakeholders that are looking for different data from this. So when we start thinking about the data from the upstream, how much demand do we need? What kind of hydrogen does it need to be? To where you get to the folks that are using it downstream, that are purchasing it, are more worried about how is this going to affect me? How do I make this transition to this new technology? Is there benefit? What are my KPIs for all that? So as we evolve and these projects go through, it's critical for all stakeholders to be able to have that data to drive decision making. And with all the partnerships here, we're going towards that to be able to make towards a greener future based on data.
Yeah, wonderful. Go ahead.
Just another thing I'll mention at an even sort of higher level than the performance metrics is that Emissions Reduction Alberta also looks at actual greenhouse gas reductions and job creation from all of our jobs, which is sort of the high level goal of all of this. So we'll be getting that sort of data as well from these projects.
Fantastic. Do you have a sense of what you might be getting in terms of emissions reduction?
Oh gosh, that's a tough question. But basically, so for emissions reduction, right, it depends on the carbon intensity of the hydrogen.
Right.
So really, for the initial phases, it's not going to be a huge reduction because we're still looking at gray hydrogen production. But the idea is to look at, will these buses run as well as they can, and then what does it look like as a rollout to the entire fleet when we can start talking about the blue hydrogen?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah. It's again, we're trying so hard to drive demand, and one of the most challenging sectors to decarbonize is heavy haul trucking and buses and these larger pieces. And there's been a lot of conversation about what do you need first. You obviously need some production, but without the fueling stations for people to actually make this practical, that's a big hurdle. So this really solves that. Maybe production is the first, fueling stations, is that the second big hurdle?
So availability is a critical factor for helping to roll out the hydrogen application in transportation. That is, we've been hearing that throughout the conference here for the last day or so, and in sessions we've had with stakeholders as well prior to this. It's the number one challenge that needs to be resolved in order to enable the deployment of hydrogen technologies. There's no point in buying a vehicle if you can't fuel it. So so this is very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we also have cases where ERA projects or Alberta Innovates projects were looking at building their own fueling station, but then they become aware of another fueling station and they can actually leverage that. We're starting to see that happening. So that's really exciting. It means everyone's talking to each other.
Yeah. Well, it has to start somewhere. And I know there's a lot of projects. There's modeling that's been done by the Transportation Accelerator and others. We spoke to David Lozelle and Mark Lee Wilson both yesterday. So that modeling out, is there. But there's modeling and then there's the doing. So, this is really one of the first pieces of the doing. Do you think this is going to spark, future stations? And how do you see the rollout of this going?
Well, I think it's critical to understand that having this startup of having places to fuel offers the opportunity to many of those bridging opportunities to move towards hydrogen. When we look at the different types, you brought up the point of, we don't have the infrastructure to support it, but we have technology to be able to be used in the interim, like a dual fuel to be able to do that can be supported by these fuel stations to get to full electrification by hydrogen. It's not going to be one or the other, it's going to be fit to where it is, if it's full electrification, dual fuel, if it's going to be hydrogen, whatever it is to fit the application. So the whole foundation is the ability to have the hydrogen to be able to go forward with it.
Exactly. So we've had conversations with leaders in California, in China and Japan and Korea around what they're trying to do with hydrogen and vehicles largely. Are there other jurisdictions that you look at around the world that are doing this? That are we doing things that are unique? Or are we kind of part of that larger global puzzle?
I think maybe another jurisdiction worth mentioning is the U.S. The U.S. Department of Energy is also taking a hydrogen hub approach, and they've just passed an infrastructure bill that's funding all these massive hubs around the country. So I think absolutely there's value in looking across the border, looking outside of Alberta, and also marketing ourselves outside of Alberta, because I think we have a lot to share as well. So.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And a lot of that starts with having the dialogue and the communication to get those conversations started, to find out what's happening in other jurisdictions. And there have been a number of sessions that have been hosted by the Hub and Edmonton Global to start to roll out these conversations, have the opportunity for us to speak directly to representatives from Japan, from Korea, from Germany, from UK, from Europe. That helps to really build the momentum. We can see what other jurisdictions are doing. We can learn from what they need and where they're going and what their opportunities and challenges are, and they can learn from us what we need to help ourselves get further along the path. So those are critical foundational conversations to keep building the momentum.
It's interesting. One of the big themes we've heard from all the people we've been speaking to, as well as the main stage here, is that this is a global crisis, and we're going to need global solutions. And it's, it may be one of the first times we see jurisdictions from around the world really collaborating to figure out how do we solve this, how can we learn from each other. So I just really love what you've said there, David, and Grace too. We're just about ready to wrap up, so this is probably the last question. Any big takeaways from the show so far? Anything that you've kind of been surprised about? I think for most of us, this is the first time we've been to a major conference, during COVID. This is apparently the largest conference to happen in Canada since the beginning of COVID. Any sense of the kind of the energy, the feel of the place?
For me, I just think it's exciting. When at the end of the day yesterday, seeing Dr. David Lizelle up on the stage closing out to say there were over 10 to 12 announcements that they rattled through, it was amazing to see what's going on. So having the ability to come to this inaugural event and start to share that information to say what's going on and how we can all get better together, I think to put it loosely, everyone's checked their guns at the doors towards a solution, so it's very exciting.
Yeah, wonderful.
I just think Alberta has a lot to be proud of. There's so much going on here, and it's just, as someone who moved back to Alberta relatively recently, I'm just stunned by how much is going on, and I think that we have a lot to be proud of and brag about outside of the province.
Yeah, wonderful.
And it's great to see things lifting off from the ground level up, and we're building basically the new Alberta and the new Canada through a hydrogen economy. So this is a wonderful time to be here, and it's a wonderful time to be supporting and promoting these sorts of activities. This is just an exciting time.
Okay, couldn't agree more. All right, so thanks so much for joining us. Again, great announcement. Really excited to see this thing come to fruition. Next, we'll be back with Air Products. So Air Products is our next conversation. And we're going to talk a little bit about their $1.3 billion project that they're building here in the Edmonton region. It will be the world's largest net zero hydrogen facility when it's up and running. So we'll see you in a few minutes for that. Thanks again.
Transitioning from historical oil and gas to the evolution of energy through hydrogen can be done by leveraging the existing skill set as well as the infrastructure that's here. There is a realization in the Edmonton area specifically that we have all of the important elements that it takes. It has to start here, it has to spread across the country, and then allow us to continue to provide clean, ethical energy on the global scale.
We believe it's important for airports to lead in this space. So as goes your airport, so goes your municipalities and your cities and your communities. So imagine a future, and that future is happening now in other places, but not necessarily in the aviation sector, where your trip to the airport is in a hydrogen vehicle. You're sitting in the airport and you're watching your bags move out to the airplane in a hydrogen tug. And you're getting on an airplane that's running either on partly hydrogen or full hydrogen. And then you look at e-commerce. So a lot of packages to our house are coming by an airplane, by a truck, by a ship. Imagine that all be operating on hydrogen.
So our new net zero hydrogen energy complex will help to decarbonize various sectors across Alberta and Western Canada. and Edmonton will be home to the lowest carbon hydrogen network in the world. We chose the Edmonton region for a few reasons. Proximity to our customers, access to carbon dioxide infrastructure and viable geology for sequestration, and lastly, we know that Edmonton has a highly skilled workforce to both construct and operate this facility.
The Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub is a collection of area leaders that are motivated to be able to transform this complex energy system. We have representation from municipalities, from First Nations, from academic institutions, and from industry, working across a wide array of sectors to be able to understand where we need to address issues to be able to expedite and accelerate this transition.
And welcome back. I'm Chris McLeod with Edmonton Global, joining you here live from the Canadian Hydrogen Convention and inside the Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub exhibit. If you haven't come down yet, please do if you happen to be in the region. This is the largest hydrogen show in North America, and as well, we've been told it's the largest conference to happen in Canada since the beginning of the pandemic. So there's a ton on the go here. And the next session, actually, we've had a lot of people that are interested in this. It's a conversation with Eric Guter with Air Products. And Air Products, about a year ago, announced a massive project here in the Edmonton metropolitan region. They're building the world's largest net zero hydrogen facility right here in our region. It's going to have both gas and liquid hydrogen, and it's just an absolute game changer, not just for here, but the world over. So Eric, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Chris. Great to be here. I'm thrilled to be back in Edmonton after a brief 3-year hiatus.
Oh, wonderful. So you were here before?
I used to spend a lot of time in the Edmonton region. I, at one time, had responsibility for all of our hydrogen production assets across Canada. So I spent a lot of time out there, a lot of fond memories, and really thrilled to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk a lot about this, this huge project that Air Products has on the go. What's next? But you already have a very large presence here to begin with.
We do. We have a number of facilities in the region, all connected via pipeline. We've been serving the industrial heartland since about 2008 and supplying all of the industrial customers. So this is just a natural extension and transition and progression of our business today. So in addition to this project, we have projects coming up all around the globe that we have announced and are underway.
Wow. So again, we know Air Products well. We're huge fans of the work you're doing. Others who are watching may not know Air Products as much. Can you give us just a bit of a sense of, Air Products as a company and what you're playing in?
You bet. So we've been in business for about 80 years. We're a global industrial gas company. We produce things like oxygen, nitrogen, and most significantly hydrogen all around the world. So we've been doing that at world scale all around the world with hundreds of miles of dedicated hydrogen pipelines. And now as the world rushes forward to decarbonize, hydrogen is a big component of that decarbonization effort. And so it's just a natural extension of our business. We've been producing hydrogen and distributing and delivering that to our customers for over 60 years. We've been in hydrogen mobility applications for over 30 years. And so for us, this is just what we've been doing. And the time now is great because this is where the future is. This is where the public wants to go in terms of decarbonization. And we're happy to be ready to offer these environmental solutions.
Yeah, and meeting our climate objectives by 2050 or earlier, it's a massive global challenge, and there's probably nobody better placed in the world to help solve this than Air Products. And just the fact that you're launching into this net zero project, again, the first one in the world here, is a real testament to how seriously the company's taking the climate challenge.
Absolutely. We have over $16 billion of announced projects underway.
Wow.
All associated with decarbonized hydrogen all around the globe. So I've been doing this for 27 years. I kind of get a chuckle at home because for the first 25 years of my career, my family had no idea what I did because it was always in hydrogen, and now all of a sudden they get it.
Yeah, from maybe not that known to now like a global superhero, helping save the planet. That's fantastic. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the project you've got going here. I know you're hoping to get groundbreaking relatively soon. Can you give people a sense of just the scale of what you're actually going to build here in the Edmonton region?
Yeah, so this is just another world-scale hydrogen production facility. Slight redesign to allow us to achieve over 95% carbon capture. So I think of these facilities as almost carbon processing facilities, leveraging Alberta's rich natural gas supply. We process that, remove that carbon, put it right back underground where it came from, and we can add that into our system to give us broad distribution capabilities. In addition to that, as you pointed out, we have liquefaction. So that gives us liquid hydrogen, which is very important for merchant customers and especially mobility customers, because you need energy density when you move this hydrogen around. You need supply chain resiliency, and that's what liquid hydrogen really does. And we're also going to make decarbonized power with that hydrogen. So instead of using natural gas-fired turbines, we're going to use hydrogen-powered turbines. So essentially clean power for our own demand and also export to the grid.
And we've talked a little bit about, in prior sessions about just the scale of this project. This isn't just to service like Edmonton and the 1.5 million people that live around the region. this is really like a Western Canada and potentially bigger as you build it out.
Absolutely. So with our pipeline network, we can serve the industrial heartland and wherever our pipeline gives us reach to.
Yeah.
But the liquid gives us reach far beyond that. We distribute liquid hydrogen today all around the globe. That's easily out to 1,000 miles or more in distribution.
Wow. You know, and again, for people that aren't familiar with this region, they may not understand or know just the scale of the industrial heartland that you just mentioned. So they've got, you know, around 40 billion in capital projects already there. You know, some of the world's biggest energy companies are there. People like Nutrien are there, and fertilizers. They've got a plan to build another 30 billion worth of heavy industry in that area, you know, by 2030. And you know, with Air Products pipeline right into that, you're not only helping decarbonize, you know, trucks and buses, but all kinds of industries that are really challenging, you know, to reduce their global footprint.
That's right. So hydrogen today is produced at quantities of something like 100 million metric tons annually around the globe, and that's predominantly used in industrial applications and agriculture,
Yeah.
about 50-50. So there are industries immediately amenable to using decarbonized hydrogen that we're already connected into. So we can immediately decarbonize the industrial sector. We can then leverage that into what we call other hard-to-abate sectors, like heavy-duty transportation, buses and trucks, which will run on hydrogen in the very, well, some are doing it now, a lot of demonstration projects going on. So we can help decarbonize the transportation sector, and then also other hard-to-abate industrial sectors, so beyond what we do today in industries like steel and cement manufacturing.
Absolutely. It's interesting, we've been having conversations with companies in Germany and some in Asia about, you know, trying to decarbonize their global footprints, and hydrogen is absolutely central. So when we talk about, you know, your project, helping those projects, it creates this really positive knock-on effect.
Absolutely. Canada is such an exciting place because it's so well positioned with its natural resources, both fossil fuel based and renewable, hydroelectric, wind power, nuclear power, things like that, to generate low and zero carbon power, not only for domestic use but also for export markets in these other regions that rely on other countries for their energy security.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we talked earlier about liquid, and we've got a hydrogen vehicle here. Nicola is here. Bison Transport has one that's a diesel hydrogen blend. And again, we've got buses that we're buying, all these pieces to help, you know, decarbonize the transportation sector. And we actually just had some announcements about that a minute ago. Can you just talk about, you know, what liquid versus gas is, just so that, again, the average person is, you know, might understand that?
Yeah, so gaseous hydrogen is simply that. It is a gas that actually is what's used to fuel the cars and trucks that are here on the showroom. But just like transportation fuels today, right, we move them around as liquid. Think of liquid gasoline and liquid diesel. Much the same, you know, occurs with hydrogen in liquid form. We need that energy density to move it around in large quantities, and also provide storage and resiliency, just like a traditional refueling station.
Yeah.
And so we do this already quite a bit. We have over 250 executed projects in 20 countries around the globe associated with mobility. So we're so excited about what OEMs are doing to bring vehicles to the fore, and happy to be able to bring that kind of total supply chain, production, distribution, and dispensing for the vehicles.
Okay. And when you look further out, so let's say, you know, this is built, you're looking at the future, how does this facility, or whether it's, you know, liquid or gas, how does that fit into your larger strategy?
Well, this is just the start. I'm so lucky to be part of an organization where our growth objectives align with our sustainability vision. We have our own sustainability goals of reducing our carbon intensity 1/3 by 2030. So then that's just the start. And so our sustainability goals really are our growth ambitions. And so just such an exciting and very fortunate place for me to be in.
Absolutely. Well, and, you know, I keep thinking about, and we've been talking about, and all the questions I've asked about, how are you helping other people? You know, how are you helping heavy industry? How are you helping, the trucking and the busing? But I mean, Air Products is also, you know, reducing emissions and thinking sustainably. Can you just talk about, you know, what you're doing inside your company around reducing emissions and kind of what your own footprint is?
Yeah. So this is, as I touched on, this is what we're doing in trying to bring forward these new and decarbonized projects, really advanced design, just like we're talking about here in Edmonton, where we're integrating things that we haven't traditionally done with this power integration. We certainly have done that, but not with hydrogen necessarily, because that is what everyone is moving towards rapidly now. And so because of that, we can offer tremendous benefit far beyond what we've done in the past. And we're so excited about what is going on. I think, we can't seem to go fast enough because everyone is really interested in the things we're doing and the products that we're providing. And we're excited about the collective leadership that's been shown to really drive this forward. And to your point, try to beat this goal by 2050 with lots of time to spare.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's so funny that the comment about it, people want it to be done faster, absolutely resonates with us. We would be thrilled if you guys were open tomorrow, let alone, doing groundbreaking tomorrow. You probably know, and I know you helped us. We put together an award submission through Business Facilities magazine on Deals of the Year. And your project actually won for Canada. And what was really at the heart of that is just the transformational impact that this project, once it's complete, is going to have on the Edmonton region, on Western Canada, really Canada as a whole. And it's really is, I think, the first major tangible step around sustainability and just proving that we can do this and actually, benefit the world. So I want to first just say thanks. Because it's, anytime we get an award, we're pretty thrilled. We get kind of share it with you.
We're so honored by that. I mean, to be rewarded or acknowledged for the things that you're doing, we're really appreciative of that. But really, the credit goes to kind of the collective folks that we have worked with over a long period of time. The City of Edmonton, City of Strathcona County, other regions, the Government of Alberta, the federal government. We have received just tremendous support, encouragement to make that happen. So really, it's nice to be recognized for that, but the reality is this is a collective award for what we're doing together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting too, there's been a lot of talk in Alberta, and I think in a lot of other parts of the world, about what is that transition from oil and gas and other energy sources and into hydrogen and fuel cells and, all these other, whether it's solar or wind, what does that look like for the average person? What does that look like for people that work in those industries to transition? And I think hydrogen is one that the skill sets are pretty similar. We've got, I think your project alone is going to employ something like 2,000 construction workers in the build. And those are going to be great jobs for probably, well, again, we want it done tomorrow, but over a couple of years.
This is a great point that you bring up, because I think oftentimes we focus on, we want this, not that. Yeah. But the reality is we have to create enough space for everyone. And so, to your point, the things that we're doing, these are high-paid, highly technical, skilled jobs, both in the operation and construction of the facilities. The skill sets are very transferable from the oil and gas sector into what we're doing today, which is great because we have to bring everyone along. We can't afford to exclude people as we go along in this energy transition. So it's just another nice place to be because we can incorporate everyone in this dream, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked a lot, across our region about the direct, the indirect, and the induced benefits of this project. And again, 2,000 immediate jobs in construction, but you're looking at steel fabrication, you're looking at concrete pourers, you're looking at carpenters, painters. There's companies across the region and really across Western Canada that are going to be bidding and getting work. So that next step and that next knock-on, we're going to see it in hotels, we're going to see it in homes, we're going to see it, almost every sector of the economy is going to be hit by this immediately, let alone what it unlocks in the hydrogen economy.
It has such a multiplying effect, and we haven't even touched on the hydrogen refueling stations that get built, the vehicles that get built, the people building all of those vehicles associated with this. And what's great about that is Canada has a tremendous amount of technical expertise in all of these areas that we can bring to bear. And so it just creates such an economic vibrance associated with just this single project. And we're hoping this is just the start.
Yeah, we're hoping that too. Can you talk just a little bit about the process to make the decision to invest in this region? We think we're the best place in the world to make this kind of investment. It's super competitive. We've got delegations here, from the UAE. We've got people here from Australia, from a number of other places that are also really driving hard on hydrogen. Can you give us a bit of a sense of why you chose this place?
Canada has been a leader in an unwavering commitment to climate change objectives. And so with that commitment, it's easy for us to make a decision to invest because we know that, yes, there'll be twists and turns and bumps along the way, but Canada's going to be committed to achieving those net zero ambitions. And that's what we look around the globe. And everyone's on a slightly different time horizon, but we have to get started, and we look to the most proactive geographies and regions. And we're so fortunate to have worked here and to continue to be doing work here.
Okay, love to hear that. For us, we talk to investors all the time, and the three things that it often comes down to is predictability, transparency, and speed. And so we're really working hard to kind of push that message to, to governments and others to say, like, make it clean, make it clear, make it like that path forward, so it eliminates as many of the risks as possible. Because the last thing you want to do is strand capital. So it's good to hear that we're doing at least this part right on the hydrogen piece.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like I said, pleasure to be back here. Nothing's really changed because it's just the same supportive industry where business and government and climate objectives all come together to solve really challenging problems.
Wonderful. And I know tonight there's the Hydrogen Awards, the first time we've ever had Hydrogen Awards in Canada. You're up for a couple of them. Not, maybe you personally, but Air Products certainly is the company. Can you talk a little bit about what you've got at least being nominated for?
Yeah, I think our project itself is being nominated for an award, as well as our liquefaction facility for the mobility application. So, like I said, we're excited to be honored, but this is a collective effort. We couldn't do it without all of these collaborating bodies that help us bring this together. We're thrilled to be at this conference. It's an amazing event. I can't believe the size and scale of it. Especially right after kind of the lockdown has ended. So really excited to keep this momentum going as we step forward.
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of broached into that, because I was going to ask you. We've got people here. It looks like we're on maybe a bit of must be something big happening in the main center, because we've had just like packed house in here all day yesterday. Most of today, at least so far this morning. Have you been to other shows or during this pandemic? Is this the biggest thing you've been to since?
This is by far the largest. I've been to a couple. This is by far the largest, and in the diversity of attendees is really what's encouraging.
Yeah.
That everyone has realized this is what we have to do. We're all going to work together to figure this out, and so that's reflected here in just the diversity and number of attendees and different companies supporting this, in government as well. It's right in the middle of it.
Yeah, perfect. And again, I mean, I know you know this, but it's good, I think, just to say it. Rachel Smith, who's your local, head of country, phenomenal. The work she's doing, the leadership she's showing this region, just amazing. The whole team, everybody we've talked to at Air Products has been so helpful, so supportive. As we try to tell the story of what's happening here, every time we've said, can you help us with this project we're doing with the Financial Times of London? Can you help us with this thing we're doing with Invest in Canada? Every single time it's absolutely. And I know that's absolutely given an absolute jam-packed schedule of things you guys are trying to do. So just wanted to say, thanks so much for how much you're giving back to this community.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. This is what's important to us, is about that relationship that we form with the local communities where we do business. Yeah. It can't happen without everyone working together. And so we're so appreciative of the long-standing relationship we've had with everyone here, and really look forward to the next announcement, maybe the next time we can talk together.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So probably the next time we'll see each other, I'm hoping, is going to be at your groundbreaking. I know we're trying to get some stuff to happen to make that happen, including letting the snow stop at some point, because anybody who's around the Edmonton region this morning woke up to some snow, and we'd like to be able to get a shovel into the ground. But we've got that coming. We've got a whole bunch of things coming. Next year we're hosting this again. We've got a plan over the next 10 years to build this into the world's largest hydrogen show. And so I think we'll probably see it every year for the next 10 at least.
I sure hope so, and I really look forward to that.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Eric. Again, this has been a conversation we've had here with Eric and Air Products about the world's largest net zero hydrogen facility that's being built right here in the Edmonton region. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with more from the Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub stage inside the Canadian Hydrogen Convention. See you soon.
Air Products will be building the world's largest net zero hydrogen energy complex right here in the Edmonton region. The first phase of this project will be a $1.3 billion investment that will utilize modern technology and innovative design to achieve net zero hydrogen. For the world to meet net zero goals, hydrogen needs to play an essential role. Hydrogen is a valuable zero-emission fuel that can fuel our vehicles, that can generate power, and really it helps to decarbonize all the sectors where electrification just won't work. On a global scale, this project is incredibly important to Air Products, and I'm so proud to be building this world-scale net zero hydrogen energy complex right here in the Edmonton region. What an exciting project and an exciting opportunity for Edmontonians.
Welcome to the Canadian Hydrogen Convention's Hydrogen Plus series. I'm Rachel Gregory, and joining us today is Mark Plamondon. Mark, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rachel. It's a pleasure to be here.
Mark, tell us about Alberta's industrial heartland. What makes it special?
Alberta's industrial heartland, it is a 582 square kilometer region that's been mostly pre-zoned heavy industrial. In essence, it is currently the largest hydrocarbon processing region in Canada. You know, the first and foremost reason why companies would look at building a project or investing in the region is the access to some of the lowest cost feedstocks in North America and the world. Right now, we're very fortunate to have tremendous infrastructure and infrastructure that not only can access Pacific, Atlantic, and Gulf Coast with respect to rail, but we have infrastructure with respect to carbon capture, utilization, and storage. And that capability to store CO2 really positions this region to lead the industrial decarbonization efforts and to position us to be the lowest cost producer of hydrogen in the world.
How is Alberta's industrial heartland driving investment into the province?
Industrial Heartland, which is the geographical region, and then there's Alberta's Industrial Heartland Association, which is, we're funded by the 5 municipalities, and what we do is we spend a significant amount of the time marketing the opportunity here, working with companies, traveling the world and talking with companies when they're looking at their next capital investment globally. You know, we want them to understand our jurisdiction, how it stacks up against other jurisdictions, so they can make a decision, you know, as quickly as possible to help them figure out if it makes sense to invest here.
How does Alberta's current industrial infrastructure compare to other jurisdictions? What are the future goals?
We have such proximity to world-class resources, energy resources, that we have opportunity to value add and add tremendous value to Alberta, to Canada as a whole. And then you take that proximity to these resources and you couple that with the infrastructure that's here. And I'm talking primarily now about the carbon capture, utilization, storage infrastructure. There's infrastructure here already that's built. There are opportunities for new infrastructure. Alberta's Industrial Heartland will be Canada's first carbon hub location when the government of Alberta awards hub operator status. So that sort of puts us in this position where we have this world-leading infrastructure on CCUS, and we're positioned for even more CCUS capability. That just really puts us ahead of the pack.
So how is Alberta's Industrial Heartland staying competitive in hydrogen? And can you tell us about some future projects?
Very exciting space. There's lots of interest in it. The underlying drivers that would drive economics of a hydrogen production facility, those are here. It is some of the lowest cost feedstocks in the world. You're making hydrogen from methane. That's a key driver here. Access to carbon capture, utilization, storage infrastructure, that's here. Skilled workforce is here. Of course, access to rail infrastructure and then to ports to get products to market. All of that has proximity to the industrial heartland, and so that all positions this region in a very competitive framework. You've had public announcements already. Mitsubishi has announced publicly that they're looking at a project that would take ammonia, in essence, a hydrogen carrier being ammonia, through to markets in Japan, and that'd be partnered with Shell and the carbon capture capability that Shell has. Itochu with Petronas have announced that they're partnering with a Canadian firm to also look at low carbon ammonia for accessing the hydrogen economy in international market. Of course, Air Products have announced near the city of Edmonton their low carbon hydrogen project. And so you're having companies coming out and publicly stating that they're looking at this jurisdiction to meet global demand for low carbon hydrogen. And so we're really excited about the future, and we think the industrial heartland is a good place for production assets.
What is Alberta's industrial heartland doing in regards to sustainability? And how do you see this changing in the next 10 years?
When we look at what we do and how we can sort of drive either decarbonization or improve sustainability for industrial development, we start marketing and target companies that are working in areas of renewable fuels, in GHG mitigation or energy efficiency initiatives, or even companies that are looking in the battery supply chain. If we can work with companies to help them figure out if their investment in the battery supply chain makes sense, then this region really helps the overall supply chains decarbonize their overall products. We are working with companies and marketing this region as a region that companies can come here, meet their ESG objectives, as well as meet their economic objectives.
Within the next decade, how do you see Alberta's industrial heartland changing to help Canada meet climate targets?
I think we're going to see more investments in decarbonization initiatives, more investments in carbon capture, utilization, and storage, and then spin-offs from that, more investments in hydrogen that helps other companies decarbonize. I think we'll see more renewable fuels. Hopefully we'll see some more battery value chain type of investments. I can see this region over the next decade really becoming a leader in industrial decarbonization and a leader as a region that produces products that can help other segments of industrial sectors and other segments of the economy meet their greenhouse gas reduction emissions targets.
And our H+ question, Mark, what is your favorite way to spend a day off?
One of my hobbies is I play music with with some friends. And so being able to play some music in front of a group of people is always a lot of fun, and that's always turns out to be a really good time. So that's a good hobby. That's a good way to spend a day off. I appreciate you asking.
Thank you for sharing. I love that. Great to hear all the remarkable work that is being done here in our province. So thank you, Mark.
Rachel, you're welcome. Thank you for this time here today. I enjoyed talking with you.
And welcome back. Again, I'm Chris McLeod with Edmonton Global. We're here at the Canadian Hydrogen Convention inside the Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub exhibit. And we've got some cool stuff here. So if you do happen to be able to drop by, there is still time. The exhibit's open, I think, until 5 o'clock today. But just to give you a sense of what we built into this space, there's little pieces you can do Instagram around. We've got kind of a bit of a timeline of what's happened inside the region around hydrogen. And really what's happened in the past has really set the stage for what's coming next. And the next piece we're going to talk about is the hydrogen mobility strategy with AMTA. And I'm going to throw it over to Amanda to take it away. Amanda.
Thanks, Chris. I'm here today with AMTA President Chris Nash, Michelle Pouliot of IQ Trucking, Jeff Grant of Zen and H-Tech, as well as Dalit Bawa of the Manager of Development of Ballard Power Systems. So I want to kind of start off talking about the Alberta roadmap that was released earlier in the year, and transportation was determined as one of the priority areas. What kind of steps are most urgent to catalyze this development and adoption for strategy here in Alberta? And maybe we can start with Chris from AMTA.
Excellent. Thanks, Amanda. No, it's really critical when we look at new energy and what an industry that's predominantly on a diesel engine, having that opportunity to show them a different direction with data and projects that we're doing when it looks to how we adopt hydrogen, have the infrastructure to support it, and everything that goes along with it. When we look at an industry that essentially needs to fuel, keep moving all the time, when you look at the long distance, having the right solutions and be able to bridge that technology to get us to a full electrified vehicle is critical, and that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amanda. Really, if you look at deploying vehicles, Alberta is ahead of the game. Alberta is deploying fuel cell electric trucks as part of the AZTEC project. In June, we're going to be seeing 2 fuel cell electric buses that are deployed in the Edmonton region. We've got infrastructure in Edmonton, heavy-duty infrastructure, and in Calgary coming. So, there's a lot of talk going on about future plans and scaling up, and I think all of that's great. But what we're really seeing here in Edmonton is real deployments and equipment on the ground. So pretty excited to see what it's going to look like in the next few months as this equipment is delivered and starts to operate.
Let's not forget the CP Rail initiative that is taking place already, because we expect that there'll be 2 locos which are being integrated by CP Rail themselves. We've already supplied the fuel cell technology, so that will bring down the emissions in the yards when they do the switcher locomotives as well as the long haul locomotives. And one of the reasons basically we should have zero emission technology. Of course, in the weather of Alberta, a fuel cell hybrid will be the system that will work very well, is because most of the freight movement between Edmonton to Calgary is by trucks. There is no rail traffic on the freights. So therefore, we need to go fuel cell and hydrogen on the freight movement between Edmonton and Calgary.
And the AZTEC project that's coming online in 2023 is going to be demonstrating that exact transportation method.
Absolutely.
Goods movement.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And it was a great initiative by ERA Alberta. And then, of course, the 2 operating companies, Bison and Trimac. In fact, Marcel was the key person in that one, where we initiated that program. It was a combination of number of companies which came together basically to prove it to ERA that yes, we have the wherewithal and we have the basically knowledge to integrate such a system. Obviously, this system will not be the most efficient, but as the time goes by, we will be bringing in trucks which are totally capable of performing to the specification and requirements of the drive line, of the drive system between Edmonton and Calgary.
Can you just quickly speak to some of the developments that we're seeing at Ballard in terms of efficiency of what you're talking about over the years, and what we can kind of expect any changes to fuel cells at the Class 8 level trucks, or moving into these 2030, 2050 goals?
Thank you so much. That's a great question. In fact, truck is one of our major market which we have identified. We think, in fact, that the truck market will be much bigger than the bus market or even power generation market, because the sheer number of trucks, and they go into millions. They're not as big as the light duty, but certainly there is a large number. We initially are putting the fuel cell module, which were developed, let's say, for the bus market, on the trucks, but that will not work, and nor will there are certain companies who are trying to put the 2 passenger car fuel cells on the trucks. That also is a science project, will not work in the long run. We have developed now fuel cell modules which fit right into the rails of the trucks, and you can multiply them by 1, 2, or 3, so that you can serve a variety of class of trucks like class 5, class 6, class 7, class 8. And these trucks give you minimum of at least 10 kilometers to a kilogram, which is almost 2 to 3 times than you will get against a diesel engine or a CNG engine.
And how many stacks would you see on the Azatec trucks? So those Class 8 trucks that are being deployed?
Azatec has got 4 fuel cell modules per truck.
Per truck?
Yeah.
Great.
Another element very important, Amanda, for your initial question, is the hydrogen truck show that the AMTA is setting up. And so it's very important for us to reach out to the transportation companies, give them an opportunity for the drivers to try, test, and operate the few trucks, the hydrogen trucks that are available today, and give them a judgment of saying, oh, this will in fact do the job that our current diesel internal combustion engine trucks are doing. So that was also a very important step for the hydrogen in Alberta.
Yeah, great. So Chris, can you talk a little bit more about that mobility strategy and how we're leveraging our infrastructure through the Azatec and the bus projects here in the City of Edmonton and City of Calgary to do further demonstrations?
Absolutely, and this is kind of how it grew when we first got into the Azatec project. When we announced the Azatec project, everybody wanted to be a part of it, and it really grew from there. But in order to bring these projects to have a hydrogen road show, to be able to bring technology providers to the table, to be able to contribute to the solutions, considering when we really look at it as an industry, we're one of the higher emitters. At 25% of our emissions in Canada come from the trucking world. In addition to, we can't slow that down because more than 51% of our GDP in Alberta moves on the back of a truck. So with these projects and the ability to bring the right partners to the table on all of these projects and more that we see coming, this is the critical path to where we can reduce those emissions, but make sure that we still have the safe, responsible, and essential movement of goods here in Alberta and in Canada.
Great. And just for the audience here, for trucks in Alberta, we are focusing more on hydrogen fuel cell for the long-haul trucking technology rather than EV. Why is that?
I can speak to that. It gets down to sort of the fundamental physics of the two technologies. But battery electric technology has a lot of great advantages. It's very efficient. Your total cost of ownership looks great. What hydrogen, though, can offer you is just sort of unparalleled energy density in terms of how much energy you can store on board a vehicle. You can just put a lot more electrical energy in the form of hydrogen gas than you can storing it in a battery. So when we look at the very challenging duty cycle operating between Edmonton and Calgary, heavy loads, 63.5 ton gross vehicle weight, really hydrogen becomes the only zero emission choice that can sort of meet that extremely challenging duty cycle. So that's really what it comes down to is energy density.
And I think it's important to note that there's different stakeholder values on how this goes forward. So when you look at from a upstream perspective, there's a lot of focus on that. When you look at the user perspective, you start to say, okay, if I have something that can come home every night and park for 8 hours, full electrification might fit that bill. However, when you're out on a rural highway and you need to keep going, you don't want to be there for 10, 15, 18 hours to be able to continue going. So depending on the technology that gets us to that goal of zero emissions, it's going to be critical on how we fit it to what commodity or what aspects we're looking for a carrier in the way that they're operating.
And especially in case of Alberta, where the temperatures are what they are, Sometimes they would go to minus 30, minus 25. Batteries have a limitation as to operating in the lower temperatures, whereas fuel cell today, you can start them from minus 30 degrees centigrade. So that's a huge advantage as well.
So we've heard, gross weights being a performance factor, fueling time being a performance factor, Alberta classic weather or cold weather being a performance factor. What are some of the policy perspectives that are supporting both the engineering and the emission perspective here in Alberta?
Well, new technology, of course, when it comes in, it needs to make sure that it's safe on the roads, and there's a lot of stepping up for that. Even for something as simple as refueling, it sounds simple because we all do it every day with our vehicles, whether it be electric or with fuel. How do you do that with hydrogen? What's the responsibilities around it? So as new technology that doesn't have any regulation to support it, there is a lot of conversations that we need to have with our governing bodies as well as the people that are designing the technology to make sure, number one, it's safe for everybody on the road and everywhere, as well as the folks that are using it, knowing how to use it safely, what they need to do, and all of the things that go along with it. So with all the policy and procedure to this, it's exciting. When we're looking at this is just a new way to get to net zero, and we have all the stakeholders here looking for that same outcome.
We also had to make sure that they actually build the trucks that can do the job here. Most battery electric trucks were designed for use in Europe and United States, who have substantially lower gross weights. And through the AZTEC project, we were able to reach out and have the OEMs actually commit to producing axles, electric drive systems that we need for our 63,500 kilogram gross vehicle weight as opposed to just 40. And I think that was very successful through AZTEC.
Yeah, and if I could just add something to the policy and sort of government component, Alberta's ahead of other provinces in the country in terms of deployment because Emissions Reduction Alberta came out and supported the AZTEC truck project, the AZ bus project, and really stimulated some of that early development and growth. And in addition, we've had support from Prairies Can, from Natural Resources Canada. So it's I think it's a unique situation where we had that support. We're able to put these projects together, and it's why Alberta's in the spot they're at. So kudos to ERA to kind of kick that off.
Yeah, so currently hydrogen is governed under our Gas Code Act in Alberta and federally, and we're looking at adopting the hydrogen regulation that's being redeveloped in June of this year. So what are some areas that, based on what we've seen and challenges of AZTEC through Ballard's development, through the bus projects and the rail and now the road show, what are some areas that we need to make sure are included from an industry perspective so that we can get these pilots on the roads faster and more efficient?
Well, gross vehicle weight distributions, special permits. Interestingly enough, Canada, up to recently, hydrogen was not a motor vehicle accepted fuel till a few years ago. And in some jurisdictions, to have the quantity of hydrogen you need in a commercial truck, you still need to put dangerous goods signs on some of these vehicles. So those are the types of policy things that people like Transport Canada are actually looking at and working to address. But there was no reason to consider hydrogen as a true commercial fuel until recently. Just as a simple example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe just to build on that, I know Measurement Canada is working to develop standards for the sale of hydrogen. It's okay in a project where fuel is part of the overall budget and it's being dispensed essentially for free, but you need to set up a commercial fueling station at a Petro Pass or Flying J. You need to actually be able to sell that fuel, and so Measurement Canada needs to be able to measure it and basically develop that methodology. So that's it's an example of a sort of a pending issue that we do need to resolve.
Yeah, and I can imagine there's layers of regulation that differ from hazardous goods transportation to actually using hydrogen as a method of fuel on board, and requirements for maintenance and garages and storage. So how as a group do you guys navigate all of these areas of gray that haven't been, really fleshed out because you're first movers?
I can take a stab at that. I used to do a lot of codes and standards work in my back in the day, back when I worked with Deljeet at Ballard. There are a lot of regulations and standards that are in place. The only way that those regulations and standards, though, get refined and work for industry is to deploy equipment and to exercise them. So we're at a place now where we have a lot of these codes and a lot of this language in place, but until you actually practically deploy equipment, you don't understand some of the challenges that you're going to see, and you really have to revise and update and edit these. So we're sort of in that phase right now where the committees have been struck, language has been written, but as equipment is deployed, we'll get better at this code and standard development.
We think actually that the application needs to be spread far and wide instead of just limiting only into Calgary or Alberta or say Edmonton for that matter. Like there are buses, the coaches which operate between Banff to Calgary, Banff to Edmonton, Edmonton to Jasper. That's one of the great application. Trucks and the buses need to be put into each community rather than just limiting it in places here and there. Because if you see outside the world, we've tested this technology in China, Brazil, India, Europe, United States, everywhere. The technology works. It's reliable. It is durable. And with the grace of God, so far no loss of life, no loss of equipment. Now we need to take the next step is the volumes. Once that happens, then automatically there is an acceptance of this technology.
And coming to platforms like the Canadian Hydrogen Convention to share your lessons and your learnings so that we can collaborate on some of these projects that you're talking about on a global perspective, but also on a provincial and federal level, it sounds like is needed.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you all for going through the global mobility strategy with us today, specifically with Alberta in mind, and I'll see you out on the floor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Here with AMTA. That was a really great conversation. I'm just going to actually steal a mic from you, Chris. Actually, right here. So I've got mic number 5, and just happened to catch Mustafa Sahin. So Mustafa is our Executive Vice President, Investment and Trade, and he's moving so fast it's hard to actually get him to sit down. So I thought maybe we'd just sit and have a quick conversation with Mustafa. It's nice to see you.
I don't know the last time Chris and I have had a quick conversation, but we'll try. We'll do our best. I'm doing really well.
Good. So one of the things I've been reflecting on as we've been, getting through, I guess, halfway of day 2, is I think it was September 1st last year, so 8 months ago, you and I sat down and we were about to have a conversation with DMG and about actually creating this. And I remember both of us looking each other in the eye and saying, like, do you think we can do this? Do you think we can pull it off? And what does it feel like to now be here and we've done it?
Well, I remember the day they came, but I also remember that was about 3 waves of COVID ago, and the amount of uncertainty, and there wasn't any in-person travel yet, and events were still happening virtually and so forth. I had very high expectations because I always do, and I'd seen what DMG has done with other events around the world, but this has exceeded my expectations. For year 1, 8 months, for a region that hasn't had an event like this in almost 10 years, absolutely exceeded my expectations, but which means I've had to recalibrate my expectation for the next 5 years and what I think this event will become.
So what's it going to become?
Our CEO's not here, right? This is going to be 50,000 attendees within 5 years. This is going to become the largest hydrogen convention in the world. We're going to make it happen.
I'm 100% with you. And I'd say, too, one of the reasons it's going to happen, and it's why it happened this year, we've got Prairies Can that said, yeah, we're in. We had a bunch of departments inside the provincial government that said, yeah, we're in. We had pretty much every municipality in the region say, we're in. We had so many companies say, we're in. And DMG, really at the heart of it, they said, yeah, we believe in the vision and we're going to do it with you. So
it's been in a perfect storm. It's been
Yeah.
a perfect storm alignment, which we don't always find between multiple levels of government, between industry, the timing, geopolitics, even just the topic of, we're talking about energy security now.
Yeah.
We're talking about agri-food and food security now, the role that our region has to play on the global stage. The time is right. And so it was just really, we had to seize that opportunity before the momentum was lost and the stars were no longer aligned. But now that we've started it, I think we're all going to accelerate, double down our commitment, and see this through. And we were so thrilled with DMG to have a 10-year commitment for this event. Now my goal is to make this a permanent event.
Yeah.
And really to put ourselves on the global hydrogen stage and to change the narrative about Alberta and Edmonton region's role in greening the energy supply for the world. We have a critical role to play.
Yeah, totally agree. And I'll say too that one of the first groups we went out and spoke to once we said, yeah, we're going to do this, was Canada's Trade Commissioner Service. And man, have they delivered. There's something like 19 delegations here.
19 delegations, 19 different countries. Trade Commissioner Service has knocked it out of the park. I just was speaking about them on the morning panel that we were on. The goal for next year is to have 30 delegations from 30 countries here. So it's, again, one of these completely symbiotic relationships where they have something to sell that's of interest to their constituents and their jurisdictions around the world, and an opportunity to bring them here. Next stages in our continued work with the EIA is we want to continue to increase the number of direct flights coming into Edmonton so people can get here more easily. And I think with our partners at Explore Edmonton and Jasper Tourism, to help promote the touristic opportunities if you're flying halfway around the world, to get out to Jasper, to get out to Lake Louise, to see what we have to offer from a tourism perspective. Why couldn't this become a family event?
Yeah, there's so much to see and do here. And I know next year we're already talking about making this not just a 2-day show, but a week-long event. But even though it's 2 days this year, we've got knock-on events. So there's sold-out tours of Alberta's industrial heartland. They originally planned on having about a bus, maybe 2 buses. They sold out 100, and 110 people subscribed, wanted to do it. They just ran out of capacity. And really, I think with this show as well, technical conference sold out, strategic conference sold out, the reception last night sold out. The awards gala tonight sold out. You can still get an exhibit pass. But that's about it.
Yeah.
Like our goal was like 500 to 800 people, and we're like close to 4,000.
We're going to have to move the reception that we had last night at the JW Marriott to Rogers Place next year. We've already started that conversation. Long term, we're going to build a bigger convention center. That's the level I'm thinking about. This can be that transformational for our city, for our region, for the province, that why couldn't we do a P3 partnership and get some of our international partners who really believe in the hydrogen ecosystem here to help partner with the city and the region on building a bigger convention center. Not everything is possible for our region. We have so much potential here. And this is just the beginning of us, all of us here, waking up and realizing what role we have to potentially play on the world stage.
Couldn't agree more.
So a good segue to World Cup, maybe 2026 World Cup.
Exactly. We're still waiting on World Cup, which we're going to have, I think, 3 or 4 games here. So, again, great conversation with Mustafa. You can see why we believe in what we're doing here. We've got people that are connected all over the world, hugely passionate, and know how to get stuff done. So, again, if you couldn't make it this year, you need to come next year. We're taking a little break over lunch, and we'll be right back in the afternoon with more from the Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub exhibit inside Canada's largest conference to be yet held inside the pandemic, North America's largest hydrogen conference, soon to be the world's largest hydrogen conference, right here at the Canadian Hydrogen Convention. See you soon. you.